Okay, welcome to another great CEO podcast. I'm here with Aakash Kumar from Shift Smart. Welcome, Aakash.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. So maybe we could start with just the basics. In a few sentences, just tell us about a little bit about yourself and about your organization, about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Aakash Kumar. I'm the CEO of Shift Smart. We are a labor platform built for the modern hourly workforce. So our entire broader thesis is if you look at platform businesses, the unique thing about them and what they enable is they fractionalize hard assets down to the unit of consumption. And in doing so, they really expand out the total market. So if you're Uber, you fractionalize cars down to the unit of consumption of a ride. Airbnb did the same thing for homes to trips and really expanded the number of people that could use it. For us, it's the exact same concept of we fractionalize jobs and hourly work down to the unit of consumption, which is a shift. So we make the commitment level, picking up a 4-hour shift at a Circle K or a Sam's Club, a lot easier than a 40-hour-a-week job that you'd alternatively have to commit to as well.
Got it. Interesting. So, I understand the breakdown, and that makes it different than maybe some other platforms. But what is your competitive advantage? Why do people, both employers and employee, people looking for a gig, why do they come to you?
I think the heart of it is really all about flexibility. Mm-hmm. And so it was the core concept was if you think about jobs that we traditionally consider in the gig economy, it was a very 1.0 view of the world in terms of just gigifying consumer logistics. But our bet was that the more fundamental elements of that, which is a desire for flexibility, concepts like instant payments, the ability to choose when you wanted to work, change that week on week, both for companies and for workers alike, that desire is going to stay pretty consistent, and it is going to then reflect in the core enterprise across a variety of jobs. And so for workers, it's really this ability to go create a profile, use that to apply to different jobs and shifts, and then ultimately stack shifts across employers where they get to choose when they want to work. And for employers to have the structural flexibility of being able to flex up and down based on demand and need. So if you're running a call center and facing external volume on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, you can tap into us to really spike up and be able to manage that inbound demand.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So what percentage of your revenue recurs every year? I mean, if you're based on sort of the unit of a gig or unit of a shift, how much, when you start January 1st next year, coming up soon, how do you know what's going to show up next year?
Yeah. So for us, one of our advantages and the way we really think about the business, it's not just last minute shifts that are highly transactional and you don't know when they're coming. We really go and focus only on serving the enterprise. So we deploy entire teams to the ground to come understand training, performance management, all of that type of work. And we start becoming core embedded parts of a company's labor operations. So if you're a Circle K, for instance, you start picking us to do some amount of hours that just are going to recur pretty structurally on an ongoing basis. We're just another part of your labor solution toolkit. And so for us, almost all of the revenue recurs year on year because it's although it's transactional in nature in the sense that it's tied to shifts, it's effectively locked in terms of longer term enterprise contracts.
You've got all of the surge capacity at Circle K, for example, and you know what that's going to be ish.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And it's surge. And then over time, you just become a core part of the labor operations.
Got it. Interesting. So if every business, every system has a point of constraint that controls the capacity of the entire system, software code, name it. Business is a system. There's a point of constraint, a kink, that if you opened it up, it changes the nature of your business, it gets more revenue, more profit, whatever. What is that for you? The one thing, if I had a magic wand, you would change about your business?
Yeah. So if ShiftSmart had unlimited shifts, and those always existed, I think the acceleration cycle for how fast you can get workers, train workers, and really embed them across multiple different employers would be really, really powerful in terms of it becomes the rate limiting factor. But in a more serious answer, where the hardest unlock is to get teams to really understand that training and those types of performance management quality filters that we have as employers, they can actually be replicated and mirrored even in a very flexible way. They don't require necessarily a full-time constrained operating structure.
Got it. And when you say, well, just taking the juggling, more shifts meaning more
Yep.
employees or more shifts that need to be filled?
More shifts that need to be filled.
So you need more demand side right now would be your ideal answer. Got it. And this is the
Exactly.
mental model that they're missing that doesn't do that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So our usual biggest challenge, and we serve some of the largest companies in the world, but typically the largest challenge that we have to overcome when we start speaking with customers is that it's not just like a transactional one-off shift because they're used to staffing companies where a lot of that work isn't done. But our worldview, where we'll come mirror the training, mirror the performance metrics, and really become an extension of the company's own labor operations. We call them enterprise labor networks, and our ability to really work with the teams to be able to go do that. And typically, it requires us piloting it out and really proving ourselves to go make it work, which we tend to do well.
Got it. Well, not cheap to start up a new client, though. Interesting. So, how many hours a week are you working right now? And if you think about the buckets of where your time goes, where are the big buckets that you fill with your time?
Yeah. So, between 50 to 60 hours a week. And in terms of really where my flow is a good chunk of my time is now going into recruiting. We've just dramatically grown the business. We've doubled or tripled almost every year. And when you do that 6 years in a row, the numbers start to get bigger and bigger. And so for us, whether it's the hiring of the new management team, really growing out like our core infrastructure, recruiting is a really big part of it. A third is really going into new customer development and the work that we do there in terms of existing and new customer management. And the last is just like on sort of more operationally focused internally in the business in terms of the day-to-day management running of a growing enterprise. And so pretty easy split in terms of just what the priorities are.
And you're right about on the button on average for CEOs. 50 to 60 hours is just about right on the button. So as you grow, one of the things you have to do is elevate your responsibilities and move things off the bottom of your list as you go to higher leverage functions. Can you name one major responsibility that you've delegated off of your list in the last 6 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be more directly involved in our operations and customer delivery work. It sort of was my bread and butter in terms of where I used to like to focus pretty heavily. We've got a great executive who's been with us almost since day one, who's really taken that on fully. And so managing our global operations and customer delivery for every single one of our verticals on a large set of our customers. So it's been a big part of material unlock for us in terms of just being able to go scale, of not having to go really have, work through the day-to-day of our global operations.
Awesome. That's great. So thinking about your CEO philosophy, your philosophy as a leader, as a CEO, could you give me one or two factors? What would characterize your particular style as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things in ShiftSmart that we most foundationally believe is it's that a lot of business problems, especially as you scale, are people problems, and that most people problems can really be solved by answering two questions of did you ask them or did you tell them? And so if you think about some of the most common problems that you hear, it's like, oh, I'm not getting this from this leader or this person, anything like that. It's like, great, have you asked them for it or have you told them? And it's like, well, no, not quite yet. I mean, I just don't know. I don't want to step on toes. We try very hard to really go focus that two-part framing back into most interpersonal problems, which really then do solve most of the business problems that you have as well. We've sort of like the ancillary view of that as well in terms of have the meeting in the meeting. So if there's comments to be made, like, don't sort of be on the side messaging someone else, oh, like, we're not even getting this. And so if you think about the like core tenet of how we run the business, and especially my leadership style, it's really focused on how do you maximize transparency in having the more difficult conversations directly versus waiting for passive aggressive or asking for a babysitter through that process.
Got it. Interesting. We used to joke that the real meeting happens in the bathroom after the meeting, right?
That's exactly right. Which is why we go out of our way, and people like our leaders are now trained to force anytime they feel like they're not getting engagement or like the disagreement is being silenced. It's really like, hey, no, let's have the meeting in the meeting. It's a phrase we use internally
Great
pretty
phrase.
extensively.
Love it. And then last question, what do you do for fun?
Yeah. So my wife and I just moved to New York, coming out of California. So we're sort of taking advantage of all that New York has to offer at this point, especially in the, as things tend to reopen more. So whether it's going out to musicals or going out to eat, we're big restaurant, food and wine people. And so the ability to just sort of like be in one of the great cities in the world and explore, it's really fun for us.
Very cool. I think you could spend a lifetime getting to know New York. So you got a lot ahead of you.
Without a doubt. Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Well, Aakash, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for spending some time with me. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you very much.